Takopi's Original Sin is a very interesting manga that I can't really put into words. What do I mean by this? Well, before that, let me give a brief background of it and the mangaka. Takopi's Original Sin is a 16 chapter short series created by a new and upcoming mangaka called Tizen 5. From what I know, this is their first serialized short series that was published in Shonen Jump Plus, which is different than regular Shonen Jump, with Shonen Jump Plus allowing more mature content. And prior to this, he's worked on 3 one-shots. 2 of them were published, while the third was posted on their Pixiv, if I'm pronouncing that right, which, if you don't know what the website is, it's basically a Japanese website where people can post their art, manga, and novel. You've most likely seen it if you've dabbled into looking at not safe for work art of your favorite anime waifu. But tangent aside, I haven't read his previous works because, well, they're read in Japanese, and as much as I'm able to read hiragana and katakana, I am unable to understand what is being written. And then there's kanji, which is a whole other thing. But if they're to be similar in vibes or as close to as Takopi's Original Sin, then that would have made me curious enough to at least want to read one of them. Now, before I get into the synopsis or detailed telling of the story, I want to preface this by saying that this next section is going to be from a recording prior to making this. What do I mean? Well, this next part was recorded before the manga ended, so they're going to be my thoughts on what was released at the time. So enjoy my past and prior thoughts, and when that's over, well, we'll get to know how I feel about the ending. So with that, I hope you enjoy. I don't usually go out of my way to look for manga to read. I typically read manga after watching a season of an anime I'm interested in, just so I know what happens next. Other than that, I only ever find new manga to read when either I see one that just happens to catch my eye, or I get recommended one through a video, and that's how I found this one particular manga. I was just scrolling through YouTube when I saw this random video recommended to me about this manga called Takopi's Original Sin. I didn't watch the video, though the title of it did enough for me to check it out on my own for curiosity's sake. And after reading it, I was just left sort of speechless. When looking at the art style and the pink octopus thing, you would at first think that this is possibly going to be either a cute, comedic, or at least an action manga. But once you read it, you start to learn that that's not exactly the case. I don't know if giving a plot synopsis is enough, so instead, I'll go through the first chapter so you'd be able to understand. Again, viewer's discretion is advised. So, the first chapter starts off with an octopus like alien talking about how he comes from a planet called Happy Planet. He didn't have the greatest greetings, but then he met a girl named Shizuka. They get friendly with each other, but Takobi notices that something's off with her, but he does his best to try to make her happy. One way to make her happy is by showing her a gadget of his that'll let her be able to fly. But she seems to not care about it and leaves to go buy a desk mat, which at first you would find as strange because a gadget that'll let you fly? I mean, no kid would be able to resist that. But then in the next panel, we see what it is that she's dealing with. Of course, being an alien and not understanding what depression or bullying is, Takopi just ignores it. The next day, we see them together again, but this time Shizuka is hiding from a group of girls that we find out are the ones that are bullying her. And not only that, but we find out that Shizuka is presumably being bullied because she's poor, or something like that. After they're gone, Takopi tries to thank her again by showing off another one of his gadgets, which is a camera, but again, Shizuka unamused, leaves. After a week of them being together, Takopi asks if he can go to her house, and when she does let him, we see a glimpse of the life that Shizuka lives. We learn that the thing she cares about the most is her dog, Chappie, and that her mom is an escort, which I'm pretty sure is something I don't need to tell you what it is. And as well as that she doesn't have a father. They then go walk Chappie, and in that walk, Takopi promises to Shizuka that he'll do everything he can to make her smile. And the night ends with Shizuka saying her goodbyes to Takopi, only for the worst thing to happen to her the next day. In the next panel, we see a beaten up Shizuka holding onto a collar, one that belonged to her dog. Again, Takopi, being his happy self, doesn't understand what exactly happened to Shizuka, thinking that's how humans look when getting into a fight with a friend. He proceeds to show her another one of his gadgets, his patch it up ribbon. He tells her that she should use it to make up with her friend, and mentions that the ribbon is able to extend infinitely without breaking. She then asks if she could borrow it, and not understanding anything, he lets her, and then she walks off. After an hour or so, Takopi gets worried and goes to her house to check up on her, only to witness a very graphic scene. He doesn't know it at first, but comes to realize that she's dead. Then, wanting to prevent her suicide, he uses his camera gadget to go back to the moment he took that photo and to know why she committed suicide and to help prevent it. So, yeah, that wasn't what I was expecting when reading this first chapter. When I saw the panel of the mean comments that were written on Shizuka's backpack, I expected this manga to be about Takobi helping her with the bullying. But when things started to get darker and darker until that panel was shown, I was just in shock. Wanting to know what happens next, I continued reading it, and we eventually learned that the girl that bullies Shizuka is named Marina, and it's later revealed that the reason why she bullies Shizuka is because her dad cheats on his wife with Shizuka's mom. But as things get worse and worse for Shizuka, to where her dog, who again she cares about the most in the world, is taken from her, things lead to Marina and her meeting in the forest, where Marina is then killed by Takopi. With her dead, Shizuka is finally able to be happy for once, now that her bully is dead. And her and Takopi leave the forest with the sins that they've committed. Then, as they're about to leave, one of Shizuka's classmates, Azuma, sees that Marina is murdered. He tells Shizuka to turn herself in for her own sake, but when she asks him for his help, he promises to not only help her, but to also help get her dog back. And the moment I saw this, I just couldn't believe what I was reading. I mean, after hooking me with the two chapters, I thought the manga was possibly going to go downhill, but I continued reading and then found out why Azuma decided to help Shizuka get away with the murder. And I'm not going to talk about exactly what happens or why he does, so I don't spoil anymore. And if you want to read more, then you can. But what I will say is that this is a dark manga, with its characters having to deal with some personal trauma that feel somewhat realistic, or just realistic. I've seen people say that this is possibly going to be the next Oyasumi Punpun or Goodnight Punpun. However, I don't know if I completely agree with that. I mean, yes, they both are dark mangas that deal with characters facing traumatic things, but I think it's too soon to say that. At the time I'm writing this, there are only 11 chapters out, and being caught up to it, I just have no idea where the plot of this manga is going to go. I mean, I expect it to just get darker, but I don't know to what extent. Even though this is a dark manga that contains some serious material, I'm going to continue reading this just to see how things will end. This obviously is not for those with a faint of heart, so if you're deciding to read it, just be ready for what you're going to get yourself into. But to end things off, I'm interested to see how things will develop, even it might make me sad along the way. Or the manga will end up possibly crashing and burning and not having anything insignificant to say, which would be the more depressing outcome. I know this video wasn't that big of a deep dive into the manga, because, I mean, again, at the time of writing this, there's only 11 chapters, so I don't think there's much to say about it, except for how dark it is, and every new chapter for it comes out monthly, so it's not a whole lot to say about it for now. Okay, so I'm back from reading the last chapter. Ignore that last tidbit I just said. The ending didn't make me sad, but it did leave me thinking, to say the least. Now, this won't make any sense if you haven't read it yourself, so if you haven't and don't want to be spoiled, then go ahead and read it, or skip ahead with the chapters below if I remember to do that so. But if you already read it, or don't care, then let me explain. So it's revealed that Takopi went back in time to originally kill Shizuka, but he lost his memories, so he's been helping her instead of Marina, like he was supposed to. Seeing that Shizuka is becoming more and more violent, he decides to fix everything by erasing all that's happened in his existence, so that hopefully things could get better. Everything goes to how it used to be, Marina bullying Shizuka and Azuma still doing nothing. But there is a subtle change with Azuma that you can see, and that's the fact that he's fighting with his brother. But correct me if I'm wrong, or future me will, but before, Azuma was very distant with his brother because of how much he hated him for being the ideal brother that his mother wanted him to be, or even better. But that aside, Marina continues to bully Shizuka, and when she's about to stab her with her pen, she sees a drawing that resembles Takopi. Then they remember something, that talking brings happiness. Then, after crying together and being abandoned by the ones that should have loved them, they found comfort within each other, and together aren't alone anymore. Then we see a flash forward where Shizuka and Marina are essentially best friends. Now, I know that the ending is supposed to be bittersweet, but I personally just find it odd that Shizuka just becomes friends with someone who's tormented her. But that's just me. Then, as for Azuma, I guess it's supposed to be implied that he's not feeling pressured to be this genius kid that his mother wanted him to be. But I don't know, since we don't really see him in the flash forward. But as I said, the ending is very bittersweet, and I don't think it's that bad of an ending. Now, as past me has previously brought up, that being that I didn't think this manga was going to be the next Goodnight Poon, I still agree with what I said. Now, although I haven't finished reading Oyasumi Poon, mainly because I want to have all the physical volumes for it, but having read Inio Asano's other works and knowing a tiny bit about the ending, it ends in a really sad way. So, I still wouldn't say that Takopi's original sin is in that level. Although it does bring up heavy topics like Asano would, it doesn't hit the same notes as it. Not that that's a bad thing or anything, I just didn't think it did. Nor do I personally feel like the manga is trying to tell that big of a message, other than bullying is wrong and that we all need that someone in our lives to not feel alone. Or I could be wrong and there is a deeper message that I just didn't see, but maybe you did. With that being said, I am interested in seeing Taiza's previous works if they ever get translated, and their future works. And if you do feel interested in reading Takopi's original sin, then again, be aware of the graphic scenes that appear early on, and then after you've read it, tell me yourselves what you thought of it. So, with the sins that we carry, let us go back to our own happy planet and close this chapter of our lives. And don't act like you don't have any sins. I know what you've been looking at.